And no one is better to speak on these issues than Ben Rhodes, former Deputy National Security Advisor in the Obama White House and an NBC News political contributor. Ben, I'm sure it is seared in your brain the day that President Biden, who you worked for, announced that they got Osama bin Laden. President Obama, President Biden says he hopes the killing of al-Zawahiri brings a measure of closure to the families of 9/11 victims. So after 20 years, Ben, what does this mean to them and the veterans who fought in the wars that followed?
I think it's a really important moment, Chris, because if you think about it, Zawahiri is kind of the last of the core al-Qaeda who built that organization, who plotted the 9/11 attacks. They've been decimated over the years, and he was kind of the last one out there. And with him removed, I think we can say, while there's still terrorist threats, al-Qaeda, the organization that did 9/11, just doesn't exist anymore. And given the fact that we've had such muddled results in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so much expenditures and lives and resources in these wars, the one thing I think we can say is we got the guys who did 9/11. And that's frankly where this all began, Chris. That's what these men and women signed up to do. And so given, again, all the uncertainty in the world, I think this is something that people can feel like was accomplished in this war.
And on the Today Show this morning, Ben, White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan was asked whether al-Zawahiri was planning attacks against U.S. interests. Here's what he said.
We do believe he was playing an active role at a strategic level in directing al-Qaeda and in continuing to pose a severe threat against the United States and American citizens everywhere.
So what does this killing mean for al-Qaeda and to U.S. national security interests, Ben?
Well, given the fact that al-Qaeda has been so fractured over the years, lost bin Laden, lost a lot of their operational and strategic leadership, there's nobody really left who can pull this organization together and give it a kind of strategic focus. And so taking him off the battlefield, removing al-Zawahiri from the leadership of al-Qaeda, there's still going to be people that self-identify as al-Qaeda. There's still going to be people plotting against the United States. But there's nobody left from that original generation of al-Qaeda leaders who can serve as kind of the fulcrum and the strategic, the person providing strategic direction to the organization. I think it does raise questions, obviously, that he was in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda had a pre-9/11 alliance with the Taliban. The Haqqani network, which supported al-Qaeda over much of the last 20 years, is now a part of the government in Afghanistan. So for the administration, I think on the one hand, this raises concerns about whether or not you're going to see more efforts by Taliban-associated people to bring back members of al-Qaeda to Afghanistan. On the other end, I think they can say that, look, we maintain a counterterrorism capability, and if you doubt that, just look at what happened to this terrorist inside of Kabul. So it's a sign that we have the capability to continue to go after al-Qaeda, even though we don't have those thousands of U.S. troops inside of Afghanistan.
And then you have Speaker Pelosi in Taiwan. The White House's National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said administration officials are concerned that China could use the visit as an excuse to take provocative retaliatory steps, including military action in Taiwan. What is your take on Pelosi's visit?
Well, look, I'm sure that the Chinese will do something in response, and they'll have to calibrate what that is. Is that military exercises? Is that saber rattling? I think the reality is we've seen China increasingly in recent years really try to intimidate people from engagement with Taiwan or from, frankly, any even comment on what China perceives as its internal affairs. And so while this is a provocative visit, I think that given how much China tried to send a message that she wasn't supposed to go there and wasn't allowed to go there, if you would back down in that context, it would have sent a message not just to other members of Congress in the United States, but to other governments around the world that, if you're threatened by China, you should back down, you should not engage Taiwan. And that's the play that the Chinese government has been running for years. And I think you're seeing some pushback in recent years, not just out of the United States, but by some other governments saying, wait a second, even though we may recognize a one China policy, even though we may not be trying to upset the status quo and push Taiwan in the direction of independence, that doesn't mean that we can have some kind of working level contact with Taiwan, which is a democracy and which is a country that has a long-standing relationship with the United States. So it's going to stir the pot, Chris. It's going to raise tensions. But I think that's the new normal we're in. we have to get accustomed to the reality that for the foreseeable future, there are just going to be heightened tensions around the issue of Taiwan, given how much China has taken a more aggressive posture, and frankly, given how much the Taiwanese have moved away from negotiation with China because they don't see any endpoint to those negotiations other than being swallowed up in the manner that Hong Kong was over the course of the last year.
Ben Rhodes, thank you so much. Appreciate it.